Okay, friends, today we're going to be talking about taking care of your seedlings. As you can see, I have a ton of different seedlings here in different stages of their growth, and some of them are doing better than others. So I'm going to show you a couple things about these seedlings. Now, first, location. So I put my seedlings here in the bay window. It's facing the west. The best sunlight tends to come from the south. Second best would be the west. Since this is a bay window, we get a little bit of the south sun coming through. Ideally, however, you wouldn't just have the sunlight to help your seedlings grow. If you take a look at my plants here, you'll notice they are leaning towards the window. That is because they are stretching towards the light. And if they don't have enough good light, they will get really tall and what we call leggy. So these tomatoes right here are getting a little bit leggy. Now the best way to prevent that would ideally be to have a grow light. But not everyone has access to a fancy schmancy grow light, so the best place you can put them is somewhere like this with nice bright light for most of the day. And also you can try to rotate them when you notice they're leaning in a certain direction. Now, plants lean towards the light so that they can get as much light as possible to make their food and to grow. But plants also need water. Now, I think that most of us are familiar with this, a watering can, and watering a plant from the top, as so. But actually, seedlings, ideally, you would water them from the bottom. This is called bottom watering. So you pour the water into the tray, and your seedlings will soak the water up from the bottom. This is going to keep the water where the plants need it most, at their roots. They are not going to be drowning in the water, and you're not going to risk covering your tiny little seedlings with water, potentially breaking them from the weight of the water. It's also good because you're not going to have it too moist on the surface, because some of these seed growing mediums can easily grow mold if you're not careful. You can see these ones here started to grow mold on the surface because I had them too moist, and as a result, nothing ended up sprouting from them at all. So learn from my lesson, friends. Now, I really should be getting a better light for these guys. You can see these are really tall and leaning towards the left there, towards the window. So I'm gonna get my light set up later. But if I move these closer to the window, they'll do a little bit better. So let's see if I can do that. We'll put it there for now. All right. Okay, take a look at this seedling. So this one, you'll notice, is short and it's stretching outwards. It's not stretching upwards. That means it's getting enough light. This one I keep right next to the window, so it's getting a lot of bright direct light. So far you can tell that it is a pretty healthy seedling. Now, let's take a look. How many leaves do you see here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a 6th teeny tiny little leaf. Now, only 4 of these leaves are the true leaves of the plant. What do I mean by true leaves? Well, let's take a closer look. How many of these leaves kind of look the same? How many of them look a little bit different? What do you see? Well, you can see the 2 biggest leaves. They're bright green, they have those deeper veins. Then the smaller ones that are starting to grow are very similar. These are true leaves. The ones below, slightly darker green, those are called the cotyledons. They're the first leaves that come up when a plant sprouts from the seed. These are not the true leaves. but they are very important in the growth of the plant initially. Now, when you first start to see the true leaves emerge, so the third, fourth leaves start to come up, that's when you need to move your seedling to a large pot like this from either a cell tray or a pod, or even if you do soil blocks. Another important thing is having good air circulation. If you don't have good enough air circulation, it makes it easier for mold to grow on your plants, and also your plants don't have as strong of a stem to prepare them for when you ultimately move them outside and they're exposed to elements such as the wind and things. So how I tackle that is by using this small fan. Now, I'm not going to have it point directly at the seedlings because that might be too strong for it. It could knock them over and you could break them. But what I do is I usually raise it up a little bit, so on a shelf or somewhere close where it will give it a little bit of an indirect sort of breeze with the air is circulating around the room, but not necessarily onto the seedlings itself. Another important thing to do with your seedlings is something called thinning. Now, I've actually just thinned my seedlings yesterday, so I don't have a really good example to show you. But if you look close enough, you'll see right on the side there, you can see the two stems growing there. Now, that is because there were originally 2 seeds planted in this pot, and up until yesterday, there were 2 seedlings growing alongside of each other. So what I did was I just took my fingers at the base and I just snipped it off gently, so not to disturb the other seedling next to it. And that's because you can't have 2 plants in such a small area. They're going to be competing for resources, competing for water, competing for nutrients, and also competing for the light that's coming from above. One of them could outshade the other. So it's important when your seedlings get large enough to thin them out, so to limit it to 1 per pod. For some plants, you might be able to get away with having more than 1, like onions, but for plants like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and such, they will not thrive unless they have enough room for themselves. So just remember to take your fingers, or you can take small scissors if you're very careful with them, and just ever so slightly snip right near the base and leave the strongest seedling. So I chose these ones because they had either the largest true leaves emerging, or because they were taller, or also because they were growing straight or closest towards the center of the pod there. So I'm going to be planting these up, potting them up pretty soon, which I'll show you in another video when to do that, how to do that. And so this is what they look like right now. Okay, and last but not least, I told you earlier about bottom watering and the effects and advantages of doing that as opposed to watering from above. And one of the most common funguses when starting seedlings causes your seedlings to dampen off. Now, I don't think this one is damping off exactly, but it kind of looks like what you might see when a seedling starts to damp off. So it will look like a nice healthy seedling, but it will fall over, and at the base you might notice that it is very, very skinny here, or it's broken off, and that's a fungus that attacks the plant on the surface of the soil here. And damping off essentially is that fungus attacking your seedling, which otherwise looks healthy, but it's too wet. Too wet, maybe not good enough air circulation, and it's causing the soil to be prime environment for fungus to grow. And also, make sure that it's getting good enough sunlight. If there's not good enough sunlight, your plant isn't going to be as strong. It's not going to be able to fight these diseases. It's not going to be as strong of a plant, and that's also going to affect it when you ultimately move it outside to transplant it to grow. So you want your plant to be the strongest plant possible. You want it to be ready to battle all of the elements when it goes outside and be strong and healthy. So to do that, remember, you need good lighting, you need air circulation, you need to bottom water, and just love your plants. Take care of them, watch them, observe them, and make note of the changes in your plant. And that will help you learn from your mistakes. All right, thank you.